The laughter haunts me still. It echoes through my nightmares, a chorus of childish glee that chills me to my very core. It's been 6 months since that fateful camping trip, and I'm the only one left to tell the tale. Sometimes, in my darkest moments, I wish I wasn't. We were 6 friends, 3 guys and 3 girls, all in our early 20s, me, Alex, Jake, Mike, Sarah, Emily, and Lisa. We'd been planning this trip for months, eager to escape the suffocating boredom of our small town and seek adventure in the vast forest that surrounded it. If only we'd known the horror that awaited us in those woods. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when we set out, our backpacks laden with camping gear and our spirits high. Jake, ever the outdoor enthusiast, led the way, machete in hand, as he confidently navigated the increasingly dense forest. Sarah walked beside him, her camera at the ready to capture the beauty of nature. Mike and Emily brought up the rear, their constant bickering a familiar soundtrack to our journey. Lisa and I found ourselves in the middle, sharing quiet observations about the changing foliage and the eerie stillness that seemed to deepen the further we ventured from civilization. There was something about the woods that day, a heaviness in the air, a sense of being watched that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Do you feel that?" Lisa whispered, her eyes darting nervously between the trees. I nodded, relieved that I wasn't the only one sensing it. Like we're not alone out here. She shuddered, pulling her jacket tighter around herself. "Exactly. It's probably nothing, right?" Before I could respond, Jake's excited shout echoed through the forest. "Guys, you've got to see this." We rushed forward, pushing through a thick curtain of leaves and vines, and suddenly found ourselves in a small clearing. And there was an old playground, bizarrely nestled in the heart of the wilderness. The equipment was rusted and overgrown, yet it stood defiantly against the encroaching forest. A set of swings creaked gently in the breeze, while a twisted metal slide reflected the late afternoon sun. "This is seriously creepy," Sarah muttered, snapping a photo. Jake, always the daredevil, grinned widely. "It's perfect. Let's camp here for the night." I felt a chill run down my spine at the suggestion. "I don't know, man. Doesn't this seem a little off to you?" Mike chimed in, slinging an arm around Emily's shoulders. "Come on, where's your sense of adventure? This is way cooler than just camping in some random spot in the woods." Emily shrugged off his arm, but nodded in agreement. "It is getting late. We might as well set up camp here. Plus, it'll make for a great story when we get back." If only we'd known then what kind of story it would truly become. Lisa caught my eye, and I could see my own unease reflected in her face. But neither of us wanted to be the one to back down, to admit we were scared of some old playground equipment. We set up our tents at the edge of the clearing, the playground looming over us like silent sentinels. As night fell, we gathered around a small campfire, trading ghost stories and laughing nervously at every snap of a twig in the darkness beyond our circle of light. It was around midnight when things started to get weird. The fire had died down to embers, and we were about to turn in when we heard the distinct creak of metal on metal. We all froze, exchanging uneasy glances. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, clutching Mike's arm. Before anyone could respond, we heard it again. Louder this time, unmistakable, the sound of a swing in motion. Jake stood up, flashlight in hand. "All right, very funny. Which one of you is messing around?" We all looked at each other, confusion and fear evident on our faces. None of us had moved. The creaking continued, growing more insistent. Jake's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the playground. The swing was indeed moving, arsing back and forth with increasing speed, but there was no one on it. "This isn't funny anymore," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Let's pack up and get out of here." That's when we heard the laughter. It started as a faint giggle, barely audible over the creaking of the swing. But it grew louder, echoing through the clearing. It was the laughter of children, high-pitched and full of glee. But there were no children here. We were miles from any town or campsite. Panic set in. We scrambled to our tents, zipping ourselves inside as if the thin fabric could protect us from whatever was out there. The laughter continued, joined now by the sound of running feet and playful shrieks. "It's just the wind," Mike said, his voice cracking. "It's playing tricks on us." but we all knew it wasn't the wind. Something was out there, circling our tents, giggling and calling to each other in sing-song voices. "Come play with us," they whispered. "Come join our game." None of us slept that night. We huddled in our sleeping bags, jumping at every sound, every shadow that passed over our tents. By the time dawn broke, we were exhausted and on edge. As we emerged from our tents, blinking in the pale morning light, we found the playground exactly as it had been the night before. The swing hung motionless. There were no footprints in the dewy grass, no sign that anything had been there at all. "Maybe we all just freaked ourselves out," Jake suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. We agreed to pack up and leave, all of us eager to put this place behind us. But as we gathered our belongings, tensions began to rise. "All right, which one of you thought it would be funny to scratch at my tent all night?" Sarah demanded, her eyes darting accusingly between us. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "We were all in our own tents." "Don't play dumb," she snapped. I heard whispering and giggling outside. "You were trying to scare me." Accusations began to fly. Mike swore someone had stolen his favorite pocket knife. Emily insisted she'd seen a shadow moving inside Jake's tent when he was supposed to be with us by the fire. Lisa claimed someone had been tugging at her sleeping bag all night. We'd all experienced something terrifying, and in our fear and confusion, we turned on each other. As the argument escalated, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. "Guys," I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Where's Emily?" The silence that followed was deafening. We called her name, searched the campsite, even ventured back into the playground. But Emily was gone, vanished without a trace. Panic set in once more. We needed to find Emily and get out of these woods. But as we searched, our group continued to fracture. Jake accused Mike of hiding Emily as some sort of sick prank. Sarah became convinced that Emily had simply abandoned us, too scared to admit she wanted to leave. As night fell once more, we were no closer to finding our missing friend. Exhausted and terrified, we reluctantly set up camp again, none of us willing to navigate the dark forest at night. The second night was worse than the first. The laughter returned, louder and more insistent. The playground came alive with the sounds of children playing, metal screeching against metal as the equipment moved on its own. We huddled together, watching in horror as small, shadowy figures darted between the trees, always just at the edge of our vision. "Come play with us," they called. "Emily is waiting for you." Mike was the next to disappear. One moment he was there, clinging to Sarah's arm, and the next he was gone, as if plucked from existence. His scream echoed through the woods, abruptly cut short. The rest of us ran, abandoning our camp and plunging into the dark forest. We crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping at our faces, the sound of childlike footsteps and giggles always right behind us. I don't know how long we ran. Time seemed to lose all meaning in that endless night. But eventually we realized we were down to 4. Jake had vanished somewhere along the way, his absence only noticed when we finally stopped to catch our breath. Sarah broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "What's happening?" she wailed. "What are those things?" I wished I had an answer for her. Some explanation that could make sense of the nightmare we were living. But all I could do was hold her, my own body shaking with fear and exhaustion. We decided to keep moving, hoping to find our way out of the forest before whatever was hunting us struck again. But as we walked, Sarah's demeanor began to change. Her eyes darted suspiciously between us, accusing glares punctuated by muttered conspiracies. "It's one of you, isn't it?" she finally said, rounding on us with wild eyes. "You're behind all of this. You've done something to the others." "Sarah, please," Lisa begged. "You know that's not true. We need to stick together." But she was beyond reason. With a scream of rage and fear, she shoved Lisa hard and ran off into the darkness. We called after her, but her only response was a terrified shriek that was suddenly silenced. And then there were 3. Lisa, always the most level-headed of our group, tried to rally us. "We can't give up," she insisted, her voice quavering despite her brave words. "We have to keep going, for the others." But as we pushed on through the seemingly endless forest, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. The laughter surrounded us, sometimes distant, sometimes so close I could feel ghostly breath on the back of my neck. Shadowy figures flitted at the edges of our vision, small hands reaching out to grasp at our clothes before disappearing. It was Lisa who vanished next. One moment she was there, her hand clutching mine as we navigated a particularly dense thicket, and the next, nothing, just empty air where she had been, and a fading echo of surprise. I turned to the last remaining member of our group, only to find empty space beside me. I was alone. I wandered through the woods for what felt like days, though it could have been mere hours. The laughter followed me, sometimes distant, sometimes terrifyingly close. I saw faces in the bark of trees, heard my friends calling my name from impossible distances. When I finally stumbled out of the forest, I was a broken man. The police searched for my friends, but found no trace of them or the mysterious playground. They chalked it up to a tragic hiking accident, assuming my wild tale was the result of trauma and exposure. But I know the truth. I see it in my nightmares, hear it in the laughter of children at play. Something ancient and evil lives in those woods, wearing the guise of innocent games. It's still out there, waiting for its next playmates. And sometimes in the dead of night, I swear I can hear my friends calling to me. "Come play with us. Alex," they whisper. "The game isn't over yet." I know that one day I'll answer that call. Because the truth is, a part of me never left that playground. And sooner or later, we all have to face our fears and finish the games we start.